assessment?
Yeah, so for me, I think the designing of an exam actually kind of starts with the course objectives. I really sort of design almost kind of like a backwards design where the items on the exam or the questions on the exam should each map to ideally one of your course objectives. So if I have a course objective that is, be sure that you can differentiate this theory from theory number 2, then the items on the exam, when I'm designing them, I design deliberately specific questions that contrast those two theories to see if students can actually tell the difference.
Do you have a design document? Do you use any kind of exam blueprint or outline or study guide, or what goes into the initial stage of getting ready?
I would say that the initial stages of getting ready is, yes, there is a study guide that, the study guide is essentially the learning objectives. Right. I call it a study guide when I give it to the students because they want a study guide, but really you could just as easily call it, unit objectives or course objectives. Mm-hmm. And what you want to do is you want to make sure, sort of like I said, that each of the items on the study guide is hit ideally somewhere in the exam. So, when I'm picking items for an exam, it's not going to the test bank that's provided by the publisher and clicking, give me 25 questions from chapter 1 and 25 questions from chapter 2, because those are the 2 chapters we've covered so far. Yeah. Because those randomly generated items might just be trivial details from the text or some side statistic that they decided to write a question about that really don't have anything to do with assessing the core objectives that I'm trying to get out of that particular modular unit.
Yeah, so you want to have more control. You want to be more specific about what objectives you're assessing and what it is you're actually testing.
Yeah, and I try to weight the items on the test so that, if we spent 3 days on this topic and 1 day on another topic, then there should ideally be about 3 times as many items on the test that are assessing the topic that we spent more time on.
Right.
And I'm very transparent with the students about that, you can pretty much guess that there will be 4 items or 5 items on the test for each day of class. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be 20 items from one day and then 1 item from the next day. It's going to be pretty proportional.
Right. So what kind of data do you look to get from your exams in general?
Yeah, so I think, the traditional way of looking at it is you can get the data of like which questions did they miss. Mm-hmm. And that lets you know, a lot of people missed this particular question. That means a lot of people are misunderstanding this particular concept. One of the things that I've gotten out of some conferences or some trainings that I've gone to is the other information you can get out of an exam is not only did they miss it, yes or no, but why did they miss it? And the way to get that data is to be very, very mindful and very careful with how you write your distractors. The distractors being the wrong answers to the test. I used to just sort of make those up willy-nilly or use the ones that came with the test bank where, this is the right answer. And then, I have to come up with 3 distractors or 3 wrong answers. So just the first 3 things that come to mind that look kind of similar to the right answer. And that's all that would really provide me. The data would be, did they pick the right answer or did they pick one of the wrong answers?
Right.
Did they get it right or did they get it wrong?
It's very binary.
It's very binary. Did they get it right or did they not get it right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things I learned from talking with some folks who do more in-depth assessment with their Psych 100 classes is if you write careful distractors, you can actually get really good data knowing why the student got it wrong based on which distractor they picked. So for example, if the people who picked B, let's say the right answer is A, the people who picked B, that tells me that they misunderstood this particular part of the concept. They confused this term with some other term. I know how then to correct that misconception for the people who picked B. The people who picked C, I know why they picked C. They picked C because they thought this over here. So I believe the word, don't quote me on this, but I believe the word that I've heard used at other places that I've been is that you can write what are called single diagnostic indicators. Okay. Where from that single test question, you can diagnose why they got it wrong. Not just that they got it wrong, but why they got it wrong. B means they got it wrong because they were thinking this. C means they got it wrong because they were thinking that. because the distractors or the wrong answers are written in a very strategic, they're plausible sounding, and they get at common misconceptions or you use common mistakes from the past to create your distractors.
And I think that's key in writing good distractors is that each of them is there for a reason.
Right.
And they're distracting for a real reason as well.
Yeah, they're not just there to hide the right answer. They're there you can mine data from the wrong answers as well. Like, so I know the students who picked, and what's really nice with Canvas and what I want to start doing is, you can, if you have quizzes on Canvas, is you can set up individualized feedback for the wrong answers. Right. So, hey, those of you who picked B, this is probably what you were thinking. Here's why B is not the right answer. Hey, those of you who picked C, you probably picked C like everybody else in the past because you were thinking this. So you get data from not just the fact that they got it wrong, you get data from how they got it wrong.
So if you could give one or two pieces of advice to new faculty that are just learning to write multiple choice assessments, what would be one or two main takeaways that you suggest?
One or two main takeaways for writing multiple choice assessments. I think the first would be to be very mindful of writing the questions. Seek out help from people who've been writing multiple choice questions. There's good books out there. There's good resources. The TLC is a good resource. But, the number one thing I would say to stay away from is those sort of auto-generated, randomly selected items from the publisher. Not that publishers' questions are always bad. I mean, I use them as a starting point to look at, but I always look at the questions from the publisher and ask myself, okay, does this item meet my learning objective for what I wanted them to get out of this lesson? Right. And oftentimes the answer is no, or, well, it could, but it needs to be modified a little bit.
So you tweak it a little bit?
Yeah. A lot of the time I start with their test items and then I tweak them to tailor them for what I'm trying to get out of the course. So, being very mindful, it takes me, not anymore because a lot of the items I've reused over the years, but initially when I started really being mindful of writing multiple choice questions, to write a 30 or 40 question test, it takes like 4 or 5 hours to really be, it's kind of the opposite of an essay test, right? With an essay test, the questions are easy to write, but you spend a lot of time on the back end grading them. With multiple choice, you should be spending a lot of the time on the front end, really being very mindful of how you write the questions and what are you actually assessing. And then on the back end, it's quicker to grade with, like a Scantron.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.